Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. The Curse of Oak Island. Gold is recovered at the Money Pit dig, but there's also a major setback. On last night's episode of The Curse of Oak Island, the team uncovered more gold from the spoils from the Money Pit excavation. However, there was also a significant and unexpected setback. Longtime viewers of the show will be used to a fair few failed digs and crushing disappointments at the Money Pit, and unfortunately last night there was a bit more of that. But there was also some cause for hope too. The Oak Island team has, once again, found some gold in the Money Pit area, which is getting to be a bit of a habit. But first, the team had to endure some disappointment. The guys had been using a 10-foot steel casing shaft to dig the TF1 hole at the Money Pit. They thought TF1 was their best bet because earlier in the season, they had recovered metal with traces of gold on it in this area, and samples of underground water had also revealed the presence of gold and silver. Things seemed to be going well. The hammer grab was pulling up plenty of wood, indicating that there were shafts and tunnels buried underneath. The team began to suspect that they were following in the footsteps of previous excavations. There was evidence they were covering the same ground as digs from 1861 and 1909, which gave the guys hope that they were on the right track. Finally, when the hammer grab began hitting off something that was too heavy to lift, they wondered if they had settled just above the chapel vault. This was at a depth of approximately 150 feet, which the guys thought would be a perfect depth for a treasure vault encased in concrete. Sadly, the crew soon determined they weren't hitting up against a vault. Instead, it was most likely bedrock, which meant game over. The hole was a dead end. There was still hope on Oak Island as gold was discovered. But all was not entirely lost as Steve Guptill turned up with a collection of artifacts recovered from the spoils of TF1. He had a fairly large number of metal objects found at a depth between 110 and 130 feet, and Marty Lagina wasted no time in running them through the XRF machine. Lo and behold, 2 of the objects contained gold. Marty can often be quite pessimistic, but he was full of positive energy last night. Speaking of the gold pieces, he argued the pieces showed they may be getting close to the source of the gold. He explained that the artifacts could be detritus from a real treasure trove, about a foot away. The final task for last night's episode was to convene a meeting of the Fellowship of the Dig in the War Room to decide what to do next. Oak Island historian Charles Barkhouse had a clear and succinct plan. He believed that the evidence showed they were super close to the shaft collapse of 1861, but that they had dug a little bit too far west. So Charles's solution was simple. They just need to place the next caisson in the ground a little bit further to the east, specifically over a cluster of old boreholes known as the C1 cluster. It was here that they previously uncovered old wood from the 15th century and metal containing gold. Don't forget, if this doesn't work, they still have 2 other caisson shafts in reserve, so still plenty of opportunity for success. The sun was just starting to dip beneath the horizon when the team gathered at the Money Pit. The familiar clang of machinery echoed across the island, mixing with the soft murmur of the ocean that lapped at the nearby shore. For years, this remote, rugged terrain had held its secrets tightly, but tonight, the crew of the Curse of Oak Island felt that those secrets were finally within reach. Rick Lagina stood at the edge of the pit, his eyes scanning the site as the heavy equipment rumbled to life. His brother, Marty, was beside him, a mixture of skepticism and excitement in his expression. The latest dig had been the most ambitious yet, cutting deeper and wider than before, based on their newest data. And the most tantalizing evidence had surfaced just days earlier, flecks of gold, small but unmistakable, pulled from the water-soaked soil. This could be it, Rick murmured, mostly to himself but loud enough for Marty to hear. Marty nodded. It's been a long time coming. The entire crew had gathered, the atmosphere thick with anticipation. For years, Oak Island had teased them with glimpses of treasure, mysterious artifacts, fragments of gold, and ancient markings, but the legendary treasure of the Money Pit had always remained just out of reach. Now, with gold showing up in the latest samples, it felt like the island was finally ready to give up its secrets. The drill plunged deeper into the earth, the hum of machinery becoming a steady rhythm that matched the team's rising heartbeat. The core samples were pulled to the surface, and Alex Legina quickly examined the first one. A flash of yellow caught his eye, and his breath caught in his throat. "Rick," he called, holding up the sample. "You need to see this." The entire team crowded around as Alex held the sample in the fading light. There, nestled within the dark soil, was a glint of gold. It was small, but it was unmistakable, genuine gold. For a moment, silence fell over the group as they all stared, their minds racing with the possibilities. "We've got gold," Marty said, breaking the quiet with a note of cautious triumph. "We've actually got gold." Rick's face was a mixture of joy and disbelief. After decades of searching, of pouring time, money, and sweat into this island, they had found the proof they had been waiting for. But before they could even begin to celebrate, Rick raised his hand. "Hold on," he said, his voice measured. "We need to stay focused. We've come this far. There's still a long way to go." They pressed on, each new sample bringing more traces of gold. Excitement buzzed through the air like electricity. Craig Tester, usually the most reserved of the group, even allowed himself a rare smile. The team was unified in purpose, all eyes fixed on the deepening pit where the treasure surely lay. But Oak Island, with its history of mystery and misfortune, was not about to give up its secrets without a fight. Suddenly, a loud, wrenching sound cut through the air. The drill jerked violently, causing the crew to stumble back in shock. Machinery groaned in protest as something below the surface shifted. The earth itself seemed to shudder, as if recoiling from the disturbance. "What the hell?" Marty shouted, rushing forward. The ground around the money pit started to collapse, the edges crumbling inward as the weight of the machinery strained against the soft, waterlogged earth. The crew scrambled to secure the equipment, but it was too late. A portion of the rig tipped precariously, threatening to plunge into the pit. "Shut it down!" Rick yelled, his voice cutting through the chaos. The crew frantically killed the machines, the sudden silence almost deafening in the aftermath. Dust and dirt filled the air as the ground continued to shift, and everyone stood frozen, watching in horror. The money pit had collapsed. For a few moments, no one spoke. The pit, once a symbol of hope and perseverance, was now a gaping maw, an ominous reminder of the dangers that came with unearthing centuries-old secrets. Rick stood at the edge, staring down into the void, his face pale and grim. "We were so close," Alex said quietly, his voice barely audible. Rick didn't respond immediately. His mind was racing, running through all the possible setbacks this collapse could mean. They had spent months planning this dig, years preparing for this moment, and now, in the blink of an eye, it had all gone wrong. The gold they had uncovered was still down there, somewhere in the depths, but now the way forward was blocked, perhaps permanently. Marty came up beside him, his eyes scanning the wreckage. "This is bad, Rick," he said, his tone somber. "Real bad." Rick nodded, his gaze still fixed on the pit. "We've dealt with setbacks before," he said, though the confidence in his voice wavered. "But this is different." The team gathered around, their earlier excitement replaced by a heavy, sinking feeling. Gary Drayton, their metal-detecting expert, spoke up. "I hate to say it, but we've been cursed again. Every time we get close, the island pushes back." Rick clenched his jaw. He didn't believe in curses, at least not in the supernatural sense. But Oak Island had a way of testing people, of throwing obstacles in their path just when they thought they were on the verge of a breakthrough. It was part of what made the search so maddening, and so compelling. "We're not giving up," Rick finally said, his voice firm. "We're not done here. Not yet." The crew exchanged glances, some hopeful, others doubtful, but Rick's resolve was unwavering. They had come too far to turn back now, and even though the money pit had claimed another victory, he wasn't ready to walk away. The sun had fully set by the time the team began to pack up, their movements slow and deliberate. The pit was quiet now, an eerie stillness settling over the site. As Rick looked out over the island, he couldn't shake the feeling that the real battle had just begun. The gold was down there waiting, but so were the island's secrets, and if history had taught them anything, it was that those secrets would not be easily won. The curse of Oak Island was far from broken.